In a country where golden Atlantic beaches stretch endlessly toward horizons that seem to breathe with the rhythm of ancient tides, where cobblestone streets whisper stories of colonial grandeur, and where vast grasslands roll like emerald oceans beneath impossibly wide skies, Uruguay reveals itself not as South America's smallest nation, but as its most intimate masterpiece. Here, between the mighty Rio de la Plata and the endless Pampas, nature and humanity have collaborated to create something extraordinary, a land where every sunset feels personal, every coastline tells a story, and every wonder seems crafted for those who understand that true beauty lies not in scale, but in perfection of detail. This is Uruguay, a country that refuses to shout its magnificence, choosing instead to whisper it through lighthouse beams cutting through Atlantic mist, through thermal springs that have bubbled from the earth for millennia, through fortress walls that have watched empires rise and fall. Today we're embarking on a journey through 12 wonders that will redefine everything you thought you knew about this South American gem. From colonial cities frozen in time to natural phenomena that defy explanation, from architectural marvels that seem to float above the earth, to coastlines that stretch beyond the limits of imagination, prepare to discover why Uruguay isn't just a destination, but a revelation waiting to unfold. Number 12, Punta del Este. The lighthouse beam cuts through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade through silk, its rhythmic pulse the heartbeat of a city that exists in perfect contradiction. Punta del Este emerges from the Atlantic coast as if conjured by some master artist who understood that true luxury isn't about excess, it's about the perfect harmony between human ambition and natural splendor. This isn't just South America's most exclusive resort destination, it's a living testament to what happens when vision meets one of the world's most dramatic coastlines. Standing at the confluence of the Rio de la Plata and the Atlantic Ocean, Punta del Este occupies a peninsula that seems almost too perfect to be real. The geography itself tells a story of cosmic forces, where the muddy, sediment-rich waters of the river meet the deep blue of the ocean, creating a visual phenomenon that changes with every tide, every season, every hour of the day. From above, the city appears to float on this liquid boundary, its beaches stretching like golden parentheses around neighborhoods that blend Art Deco elegance with contemporary architectural daring. But it's the beaches that truly define this wonder. Playa Mansa on the riverside offers waters so calm they mirror the sky like polished glass, while Playa Brava, facing the Atlantic, roars with waves that have traveled thousands of miles to crash against these shores. The contrast isn't just visual, it's almost philosophical. Families with children gravitate toward Mansa's gentle embrace, while surfers and wind-seekers find their calling in Brava's endless energy. And between these two worlds sits La Mano, the giant hand sculpture that has become Uruguay's most photographed landmark, its fingers emerging from the sand like some ancient titan's final grasp toward the sky. The architectural landscape of Punta del Este reads like a love letter to the art of seaside living. Towers of glass and steel rise from the coastline with an almost musical rhythm, their facades reflecting the ever-changing moods of sea and sky. The famous Puente Ondulado, with its wave-like curves, doesn't just connect the mainland to the peninsula, it announces arrival into a realm where even infrastructure becomes poetry. Streets lined with pine trees and palm trees create an almost Mediterranean atmosphere, while the marina fills with yachts that represent every corner of the globe, their masts creating a forest of possibility against the endless horizon. Yet beyond the glamour lies a deeper truth about this wonder. Punta del Este has managed to maintain its soul despite international fame. Local fishermen still work the waters at dawn, their boats silhouetted against the rising sun like brushstrokes on canvas. The Sunday market in Plaza Artigas pulses with authentic Uruguayan life, while the nearby Casa Pueblo, artist Carlos Paez Villaro's whitewashed masterpiece, clings to the cliffs like a Mediterranean dream transported to the edge of the world. This is a place where champagne toasts at sunset coexist with mate circles at dawn, where international sophistication embraces local tradition without losing either. Number 11, Colonia del Sacramento. Time moves differently in Colonia del Sacramento. Not slower exactly, but with a weight that seems to accumulate in the spaces between cobblestones, in the shadows cast by colonial walls that have witnessed 4 centuries of human drama. This UNESCO World Heritage Site sits like a jewel box on the northern shore of the Rio de la Plata, its Portuguese colonial architecture creating streetscapes so perfectly preserved they seem almost dreamlike. But this isn't a museum piece. It's a living city where every stone tells a story. Every doorway opens onto layers of history that stretch back to the earliest European settlements in South America. The Calle de los Suspiros, the Street of Sighs, embodies everything magical about this wonder. Narrow and paved with stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, it descends toward the river like a pathway through time itself. The buildings that line it display the architectural DNA of two empires, Portuguese simplicity and Spanish grandeur, creating a visual dialogue between civilizations that played out across these very streets. Windows shuttered in faded blues and greens frame glimpses of courtyards where bougainvillea cascades over ancient walls, while wrought iron balconies seem to hover in the golden light that filters through the branches of century-old trees. The lighthouse of Colonia serves as both a navigation aid and a symbol of the city's enduring significance. Built in 1857 on the ruins of a 17th-century convent, it rises 95 feet above the river, its beacon visible for miles across the muddy waters of the Rio de la Plata. But the real magic happens when you climb to its summit. From here, the entire historic quarter spreads out below like a living map of colonial ambition, while across the water, the skyscrapers of Buenos Aires shimmer in the distance like a mirage of the modern world. The juxtaposition is breathtaking, this perfectly preserved colonial gem gazing across the river toward one of South America's largest cities, separated by mere miles but centuries of development. The Plaza Mayor anchors the historic district with a sense of timeless ceremony. Ancient sycamores create a canopy of shade over benches where locals gather to share mate and conversation, their ritual unchanged despite the tourists who wander through with cameras and guidebooks. The cathedral, with its simple but elegant facade, stands as a testament to the enduring power of faith in shaping communities. Its interior, cool and dim, offers respite from the intense summer sun, while ancient stones seem to absorb the whispered prayers of generations. But perhaps the most magical aspect of Colonia del Sacramento is how it handles the transition from day to night. As the sun sets over the Rio de la Plata, the entire city seems to glow from within. Street lamps flicker to life along the cobblestone paths, casting pools of warm light that transform every corner into a scene from a romantic film. Restaurants tucked into colonial buildings come alive with the sound of conversation and clinking glasses, while the night air carries the mingled scents of grilled meat, sea breeze, and the eternal perfume of jasmine climbing ancient walls. This is a place where time doesn't just slow down, it deepens, revealing layers of beauty that only emerge when the rest of the world has gone quiet. Number 10. Cabo Polonio. This unique place exists in defiance of the modern world. Here, the absence of electricity and running water feels not like deprivation, but rather like liberation. This remote fishing village clings to a windswept peninsula where the Atlantic Ocean crashes against rocky shores with a kind of prehistoric fury. It's a landscape so raw and untamed, it almost seems to belong to another planet. Accessible only by off-road vehicles that traverse seemingly endless sand dunes, Cabo Polonio isn't just a destination. It's more like a pilgrimage to one of the last places on Earth where the rhythm of life follows the sun, the tides, and the migration patterns of sea lions who have claimed these shores as their own. The lighthouse of Cabo Polonio stands like a sentinel against the vast emptiness of sea and sky. Its black and white stripes create a visual anchor in a landscape that can feel, well, almost overwhelming in its immensity. Built way back in 1881, it rises from a rocky outcrop surrounded by massive granite boulders. These have been sculpted by millennia of wind and waves into forms that seem almost architectural in their perfection. The lighthouse beam, powered by solar panels in this off-grid paradise, sweeps across waters that stretch unbroken all the way to Antarctica. It's a reminder that this is truly the edge of the inhabited world. But it's the sea lions that transform Cabo Polonio from a remote outpost into a living wonder. Thousands of these magnificent creatures have established a permanent colony on the rocky shores. Their barking calls create a constant soundtrack that mingles with the crash of waves and the whisper of wind through beach grass. From the lighthouse, visitors can observe entire social hierarchies play out on the rocks below. You see dominant males defending their territories, mothers teaching their pups to navigate the treacherous waters, and bachelor groups lounging in the sun with an air of casual indifference to the human observers above. The interaction is completely natural and unforced, a reminder of what wildlife viewing was like before zoos and marine parks tried to replicate these experiences in controlled environments. The village itself embodies a kind of sustainable minimalism that feels both ancient and futuristic. Houses built from driftwood and recycled materials cluster around sandy paths that disappear and reappear with each storm, creating a community that exists in constant negotiation with the natural world. Solar panels provide just enough power for essential needs, while fresh water arrives by truck from the mainland, making every drop precious. The local restaurants serve fresh fish caught that morning, cooked over wood fires that create gathering spaces where strangers become friends and travelers share stories under star-filled skies unmarred by light pollution. The beaches of Cabo Polonio stretch in both directions toward horizons that seem to curve with the actual curvature of the earth. Sand dunes shift and reshape themselves with each wind, creating a landscape that is literally never the same twice. Surfers come here for waves that have traveled thousands of miles without encountering another human settlement, while those seeking solitude find beaches where footprints disappear with each tide, leaving no trace of human passage. At night, when the lighthouse beam sweeps across the darkness and the Milky Way blazes overhead with an intensity impossible to imagine in the modern world, Cabo Polonio reveals its deepest truth. Sometimes the most profound beauty comes not from what we add to a place, but from what we choose to leave out. Number 9. Termas de Daman. The earth reveals its secrets slowly in Daman, where thermal springs bubble up from depths that connect to the planet's molten core, creating an oasis of warmth in the Uruguayan countryside that defies both geography and expectation. This isn't just a spa destination, it's a geological phenomenon that transforms the landscape into something almost mythical, where mineral-rich waters emerge from underground at temperatures that reach 113 degrees Fahrenheit, creating clouds of steam that rise like prayers toward the endless sky of the interior pampas. The scientific reality of Daman's thermal springs reads like something from a geology textbook, but the experience transcends academic understanding. These waters begin their journey more than 6,000 feet below the surface, where they're heated by the Earth's geothermal energy and enriched with minerals that give them therapeutic properties recognized by both modern medicine and ancient tradition. The springs produce over 400 gallons of water per minute, creating a constant flow that has been consistent for thousands of years, a testament to the stable geological forces that created this natural wonder. But it's the visual impact that first captures visitors. The main thermal pool complex spreads across carefully landscaped grounds where palm trees and tropical plants create an almost surreal microclimate in the middle of Uruguay's temperate grassland. Steam rises from multiple pools of varying temperatures, creating an atmosphere that shifts between mystical and scientific, as the mineral-rich vapors catch the light and create ephemeral rainbows in the air. The largest pool can accommodate hundreds of people, yet the constant flow of fresh thermal water ensures that it never feels crowded or artificial, nature's own infinity pool, refreshed by the planet itself. The surrounding landscape enhances the sense of discovering something extraordinary in an unexpected place. Rolling hills covered in native grasses stretch toward horizons that seem to go on forever, while the Rio Uruguay winds through the distance like a silver ribbon connecting this geothermal oasis to the broader tapestry of South American geography. The contrast between the warm, mineral-rich waters and the cool grassland air creates a sensory experience that's both invigorating and deeply relaxing, as if the earth itself is offering a kind of natural therapy that addresses both body and spirit. The cultural significance of Daman extends beyond its therapeutic properties. This has become a gathering place for Uruguayans from across the country, a democratic space where families from Montevideo mingle with farmers from the interior, where vacation rituals are shared across social and economic. The thermal pools operate around the clock, creating a unique social rhythm where dawn swimmers share the waters with night shift workers seeking relaxation, where children's laughter echoes off the water at the same time serious conversations about life and politics unfold in the therapeutic warmth. The hotels and infrastructure surrounding the springs have been designed to complement rather than compete with the natural wonder. Architecture emphasizes clean lines and natural materials, creating spaces that feel integrated with the landscape rather than imposed upon it. Gardens filled with native plants and exotic species that thrive in the humid microclimate create walking paths that lead from pool to pool, each with its own character and temperature. At night, subtle lighting transforms the entire complex into something magical, where the steam rises like visible breath from the earth, and the sound of flowing water creates a constant, soothing soundtrack that seems to slow down time itself. Number 8. Montevideo's Ciudad Vieja. Montevideo's Ciudad Vieja pulses with the accumulated energy of 2 centuries of South American history, its colonial architecture and cobblestone streets creating a living museum where every plaza, every building, every corner tells a story of independence, immigration, and cultural fusion. This isn't just the historic heart of Uruguay's capital, it's a neighborhood where the past lives alongside the present in a constant, vibrant conversation that transforms simple city blocks into theaters of human experience. The Plaza Independencia serves as the dramatic centerpiece of this urban wonder, a vast square that functions as both geographic and symbolic center of the nation. The mausoleum of General José Artigas, Uruguay's national hero, lies beneath the plaza in a subterranean chamber that can only be described as cathedral-like. Above ground, the plaza serves as a stage for daily life, where office workers cross paths with street performers, where political rallies share space with impromptu tango demonstrations, and, where the rhythm of contemporary Montevideo plays out against the backdrop of buildings that have witnessed the entire sweep of the nation's history. The architectural diversity of Ciudad Vieja creates a visual narrative of Uruguay's evolution from colonial outpost to modern nation. The Solis Theater, dating from 1856, stands as South America's oldest operating theater, its neoclassical facade and ornate interior representing the cultural aspirations of a young republic. The building's acoustics are honestly just legendary among performers, while its program keeps on attracting international artists who come to experience the unique energy of performing in this historic space. The theater's survival through economic crises, military coups, and social upheavals, well, it makes it a symbol of cultural resilience that really goes beyond mere architecture. The Mercado del Puerto, transforms the simple concept of a market into something that's really approaching urban poetry. Housed in a 19th century iron structure that recalls the great train stations of Europe, this market has evolved into the beating heart of Montevideo's culinary culture. The smell of grilled meat mingles with the sound of conversation in multiple languages, while restaurants and bars occupy spaces that once housed wholesale food vendors. The Saturday crowds include everyone from tourists seeking authentic Uruguayan cuisine to locals continuing family traditions that stretch back generations. The market's parillas, or grill houses, have really achieved legendary status. Their smoke rises through the iron framework, creating this atmosphere that, just engages all the senses. But honestly, it's the streets themselves that create the most profound experience of Ciudad Vieja. The Peatonal Sarandi, which is the main pedestrian thoroughfare, connects the colonial core to the modern city through a corridor of shops, cafes, and historic buildings that, showcase the neighborhood's evolution. Street art covers walls with murals that comment on everything from political events to social issues, creating an outdoor gallery that changes constantly as new artists add their voices to the urban conversation. The contrast between colonial facades and contemporary artistic expression creates this visual dialogue between past and present. It's something that feels both respectful and, revolutionary. The waterfront along the Rio de la Plata provides Ciudad Vieja with its most dramatic natural setting. It's really quite something to behold. The Rambla, Montevideo's famous coastal promenade, begins here and stretches along the entire length of the city, but in Ciudad Vieja, it takes on special significance as the place where the historic neighborhood meets the infinite horizon of the river. It's truly a remarkable sight. Sunset from the waterfront transforms the entire district into something magical, as the golden light reflects off colonial walls and modern glass alike. It's like a visual symphony that captures the essence of a city that has learned to honor its past while embracing its future. Number 7. Laguna Garzon. Laguna Garzon exists in a state of perpetual transition, where saltwater and freshwater meet in a dance that creates one of South America's most important ecosystems. At the same time, it offers visitors an experience of natural beauty so profound it seems to redefine the very concept of a lagoon. This coastal lagoon, separated from the Atlantic Ocean by a narrow strip of sand dunes, creates a protected environment where hundreds of species of birds, fish, and marine life thrive. The waters shift between emerald and sapphire depending on the light, the season, and the complex chemistry of brackish water. The circular bridge that spans the lagoon has become an architectural wonder in its own right. Its unusual ring shape creates a visual metaphor for the cyclical nature of the ecosystem it protects. Designed by Rafael Vinoli, the bridge doesn't just connect the coasts of Rocha and Maldonado, it forces travelers to slow down, to curve through the landscape rather than cut across it, creating a journey that becomes part of the destination. From the bridge, the lagoon spreads out in all directions like a liquid jewel, its waters reflecting the sky while simultaneously revealing the underwater grasses that create the foundation of this complex ecosystem. The bird life of Laguna Garzon transforms the lagoon into a living aviary, where observation becomes meditation. Black-necked swans glide across the water with prehistoric grace, their white bodies creating moving sculptures against the darker waters. Flamingos arrive in massive flocks during certain seasons, their pink forms creating clouds of color that seem almost too intense to be real. Great egrets, herons, and dozens of other species feed in the shallow waters, their hunting rituals creating a constant, hypnotic performance that reveals the lagoon's role as a critical stopover on major migratory routes. The surrounding landscape enhances the lagoon's beauty through contrast and complement. On one side, the Atlantic Ocean crashes against sandy beaches that stretch toward infinity, while on the other, rolling hills covered in native grasses create a backdrop of gentle green that changes color with the seasons. The narrow strip of land that separates the lagoon from the ocean becomes a unique microenvironment where salt-tolerant plants create gardens that seem designed by nature's most sophisticated artist. Dunes shift and reshape themselves with each storm, creating a landscape that is literally never the same twice. The fishing culture of Laguna Garzon connects contemporary life to ancient traditions in ways that feel both timeless and sustainable. Local fishermen work the waters using techniques passed down through generations, their small boats creating moving points of human activity in the vast expanse of water. The catch includes species that exist nowhere else in Uruguay, fish that have adapted to the unique conditions of brackish water and represent evolutionary stories that stretch back millions of years. Restaurants along the lagoon's shores serve this fresh catch in settings that blur the line between dining and nature observation, where meals become opportunities to experience the lagoon's bounty while watching the sun set over waters that seem to hold the sky. The conservation efforts surrounding Laguna Garzon represent a model for sustainable tourism that other destinations study and attempt to replicate. The lagoon's protected status ensures that development remains limited and sensitive to the ecosystem's needs, while educational programs help visitors understand the complex environmental relationships that make this place so special. The result is a destination that feels both accessible and precious, where human presence enhances rather than diminishes the natural wonder, creating experiences that transform visitors into advocates for the protection of similar ecosystems worldwide. Number 6. Fortaleza de Santa Teresa. Fortaleza de Santa Teresa emerges from the coastal plain like a geometric dream imposed upon the landscape, its star-shaped walls and bastions creating a perfect example of 18th-century military architecture that seems to float above the rolling hills of Rocha province. This Portuguese fortress, later completed by Spanish forces, represents more than just defensive strategy. It's a masterpiece of engineering that transforms the practical needs of colonial warfare into something approaching art where mathematical precision meets the organic beauty of the surrounding landscape to create a wonder that is simultaneously human and natural. The fortress's location reveals the strategic genius of its designers. Positioned on a slight rise that provides commanding views of the Atlantic coast and the inland plains, Santa Teresa could monitor both maritime and overland approaches to the contested border between Spanish and Portuguese territories. But the visual impact transcends military considerations. The fortress appears to grow organically from the earth, its stone walls following the natural contours of the landscape while imposing a geometric order that creates a dialogue between human ambition and natural form. The contrast between the angular precision of the star-shaped fortification and the flowing lines of the coastal environment creates a visual tension that makes the entire structure seem to vibrate with energy. The bastions and walls of Santa Teresa demonstrate the evolution of military architecture in response to the development of artillery warfare. Each angle, each curve, each sightline was calculated to eliminate blind spots and create overlapping fields of fire that would make the fortress virtually impregnable to the weapons of its era. Walking the walls provides a lesson in 18th-century military engineering, but also an aesthetic experience as the views change with each step, revealing new perspectives on the surrounding landscape. The Atlantic Ocean stretches toward the horizon, while inland, the plains roll away toward distant hills that seem to go on forever, creating a sense of space and freedom that contrasts dramatically with the fortress's obvious defensive purpose. The restored interior of the fortress houses a museum that brings the colonial period to life without resorting to artificial recreations. Original artifacts, weapons, and documents tell the story of the men who built and defended this outpost, while architectural details reveal the daily life of a military garrison living on the edge of the known world. The chapel, with its simple but elegant design, provided spiritual comfort to soldiers far from home, while the officers' quarters demonstrate how even frontier military life maintained certain standards of civilization and comfort. The surrounding Santa Teresa National Park transforms the fortress from an isolated historical monument into the centerpiece of a larger natural wonder. The park's coastal forests represent one of Uruguay's few remaining examples of Atlantic coastal ecosystem, where native trees and plants create a green corridor that connects the fortress to the ocean. Trails wind through forests where birds sing with a complexity that seems to match the geometric sophistication of the fortress itself, while beaches stretch in both directions with sand so fine it seems to have been carefully sifted by wind and wave. The contrast between the fortress and its natural setting creates a deeper meditation on the relationship between human achievement and environmental stewardship. Santa Teresa was built to project power and control territory, but time has transformed it into something more complex. A monument to human ambition that has been reclaimed by nature without losing its essential character. Vines climb the walls, birds nest in the bastions, and the sound of wind through the embrasures mingles with the distant crash of waves, creating a harmony between human creation and natural forces that seems to point toward possibilities for coexistence that transcend the military mindset that originally shaped this place. Number 5. Punta Ballena and Casa Pueblo. Punta Ballena rises from the Atlantic coast like a geological poem, its cliffs and headlands creating a landscape so dramatic it seems designed by an artist who understood that the most profound beauty comes from the marriage of earth and sea. But it's Casa Pueblo, the whitewashed architectural marvel that clings to these cliffs like a Mediterranean dream, transplanted to the edge of the world, that transforms this natural wonder into something transcendent. Carlos Páez Villaro's masterpiece flows across the headland like crystallized imagination, its organic forms echoing the curves of the coastline while creating spaces that seem to capture and concentrate the very essence of seaside living. The approach to Casa Pueblo reveals the genius of its integration with the landscape. The building doesn't sit on the cliff, it becomes part of the cliff, its white walls and curved terraces following the natural contours of the rocky headland so perfectly that it seems to have grown from the stone itself. The architecture defies easy categorization, blending influences from Mediterranean cave dwellings, Moroccan kasbahs, and the organic modernism of architects like Gaudi, but ultimately creating something entirely unique. Every window, every terrace, every curved wall is positioned to capture a different aspect of the view, creating a structure that functions as both building and viewing device, where the act of inhabiting the space becomes inseparable from the experience of observing the sea. The interior spaces of Casa Pueblo flow like the building's exterior, with no straight lines or sharp angles to interrupt the sense of organic movement. Rooms connect through archways and passages that create a sense of discovery, where each space reveals new perspectives on the surrounding landscape. The art collection featuring Páez Villaro's own works alongside pieces by other South American artists creates a dialogue between creative expression and natural beauty that feels both intimate and universal. The famous sunset ceremony where visitors gather on the terraces to watch the sun disappear into the Atlantic while listening to the artist's own poetry transforms the daily astronomical event into something approaching ritual. The landscape surrounding Casa Pueblo enhances the architectural wonder through contrast and complement. The cliffs drop dramatically to beaches where the Atlantic waves crash with prehistoric force, creating a constant soundtrack that mingles with the wind through the building's open spaces. Native plants and carefully chosen exotic species create gardens that seem to flow seamlessly from the building's terraces into the natural landscape, while paths wind along the cliff edges, providing access to viewpoints that reveal new aspects of the coastline's geological drama. The cultural significance of Casa Pueblo extends beyond its architectural importance. This has become a pilgrimage site for those seeking to understand how human creativity can enhance, rather than diminish, natural beauty. The building serves as both private residence and public art space, cultural center and architectural monument, creating a model for how individual vision can create spaces that serve broader community needs. The artist's studio, still active within the building, demonstrates that this isn't just a museum piece, but a living, working space where creativity continues to evolve and respond to the changing light and seasons of the coastal environment. But perhaps the most profound aspect of Punta Ballena and Casa Pueblo is how they demonstrate the possibility of architecture that truly serves life, rather than merely sheltering it. The building's spaces are designed not just for function, but for the enhancement of human experience, where every room, every terrace, every passage creates opportunities for contemplation, celebration, or simple appreciation of the natural world. At sunset, when the white walls glow with reflected light and the sound of waves mingles with the voices of visitors from around the world, Casa Pueblo reveals its deepest truth, that the most successful human creations are those that amplify rather than compete with the beauty of their natural setting. If this journey has already left you breathless, hit that subscribe button, we're only halfway through. Number 4. Salto del Penitente. Salto del Penitente thunders through the landscape of northern Uruguay like nature's own cathedral, where the Rio Uruguay transforms from a gentle river into a cascading force that carved its way through ancient rock formations over millions of years. This isn't just Uruguay's most spectacular waterfall, it's a geological time machine that reveals the violent forces that shaped South America, while simultaneously creating a microenvironment so lush and diverse it seems to belong to the Amazon basin rather than the temperate grasslands of the interior. The waterfall itself defies the gentle stereotypes often associated with Uruguayan landscape. Water plunges nearly 200 feet over a series of rocky ledges, creating a multi-tiered cascade that changes character with every level. The upper falls crash with tremendous force into deep pools carved from solid rock, while lower cascades spread across broader stone terraces, creating a variety of environments that support different ecosystems within a single geographic feature. The sound is overwhelming, a constant roar that drowns out conversation and creates a kind of natural white noise that seems to reset the human nervous system, forcing visitors into a state of heightened awareness that borders on the meditative. The geological story of Salto del Penitente reads like a chapter from the Earth's autobiography. The rock formations reveal layers of sediment deposited over millions of years, compressed and folded by tectonic forces that created the river valley and then carved by water that has been flowing through these channels since the last ice age. The falls themselves represent a point where softer rock has been eroded away, leaving harder formations that create the dramatic, vertical drop. The resulting canyon provides a cross-section of geological time, where each layer tells a story of different climate conditions, different ocean levels, different configurations of the South American continent. The ecosystem surrounding the falls demonstrates how water creates abundance even in unexpected places. The constant spray from the cascades creates a humid microclimate that supports plant life more typically found in tropical regions. Ferns and mosses cover the rocky walls with carpets of green that seem to glow in the filtered sunlight, while flowering plants create gardens that appear to have been designed by nature's most skilled landscape artist. The bird life includes species that exist nowhere else in Uruguay, attracted by the abundant insect life and the protected environment of the canyon walls. The cultural significance of Salto del Penitente extends beyond its natural beauty. This has been a sacred site for indigenous peoples for thousands of years, a place where the power of water was understood to connect the earthly and spiritual realms. The Spanish name, referencing a penitent or someone seeking spiritual purification, reflects the continuation of this sacred association into the colonial period. Modern visitors often report a sense of spiritual renewal that seems to emerge from the combination of natural beauty, physical power, and the humbling experience of standing before forces that dwarf human scale and ambition. The surrounding landscape enhances the waterfall's impact through contrast and approach. The path to the falls winds through typical Uruguayan grassland, where cattle graze and the horizon seems to stretch forever, creating no hint of the dramatic geological feature ahead. The sound of the falls can be heard long before they become visible, creating an audio landscape that builds anticipation and transforms the simple act of walking into something approaching pilgrimage. When the falls finally come into view, the contrast between the gentle pastoral landscape and the dramatic cascade creates a visual shock that seems to recalibrate the visitor's understanding of what Uruguay's landscape can contain. The conservation efforts surrounding Salto del Penitente represent a model for protecting natural wonders while making them accessible to visitors. Trails and viewing platforms have been constructed to provide safe access to the best viewpoints while minimizing impact on the fragile ecosystem. Educational programs help visitors understand the geological and ecological processes that create and maintain this natural wonder, while strict regulations ensure that the falls remain pristine for future generations. The result is a destination that feels both wild and accessible, where human presence enhances rather than diminishes the natural experience. Number 3. Balizas and Aguas Dulces. Balizas and Aguas Dulces stretch along Uruguay's Atlantic coast like a meditation on the relationship between human community and natural forces, where small fishing villages exist in perfect harmony with some of the most pristine beaches in South America. This isn't just a coastal destination, it's a living demonstration of how human settlements can enhance rather than diminish natural beauty, where the rhythm of daily life follows the tides and the seasons, creating communities that seem to breathe with the ocean itself. The beaches of Balizas extend in both directions beyond the limits of vision, their sand so fine and white it seems to have been carefully refined by millennia of wave action. The dunes behind the beach rise like golden mountains, their surfaces rippled by wind into patterns that change with every storm, every season, every day. These aren't just sand hills, they're living landscapes that migrate inland with each winter storm and return toward the ocean with summer breezes, creating a dynamic environment where the boundary between land and sea is constantly being renegotiated by forces far larger than human influence. The surfing culture of Balizas has evolved into something approaching an art form, where riders from all over the world come to experience waves that have traveled thousands of miles across the Atlantic without ever encountering another landmass. The breaks are, consistent and powerful, creating conditions that challenge experienced surfers while still remaining accessible to beginners. But it's really the setting that transforms surfing here from a sport into something much more profound. The experience of riding waves while surrounded by endless beach, rolling dunes, and a horizon that actually seems to curve with the Earth itself creates a sense of connection to planetary forces that honestly transcends the purely physical experience of the sport. Aguas Dulces, just down the coast, represents a different but equally compelling approach to coastal living. The village's name, meaning sweet waters, reflects the presence of freshwater streams that flow through the dunes to meet the ocean, creating these unique ecosystems where salt and fresh water mix in lagoons that support birdlife found nowhere else in Uruguay. The architecture of Aguas Dulces really reflects this integration with natural forces. Simple, low-profile buildings that seem to grow right out of the landscape rather than imposing themselves upon it, creating a community that feels both permanent and temporary, like a human settlement that could disappear with the next big storm and yet somehow has been here forever. The fishing culture of both villages connects contemporary life to ancient traditions in ways that feel, both authentic and sustainable. Local fishermen work the waters using techniques that have been passed down through generations, their small boats creating moving points of human activity in the vast expanse of ocean. The catch includes species that exist nowhere else along the South American coast. Fish that have adapted to the unique conditions created by the meeting of warm and cold currents offshore. Restaurants in both villages serve this fresh catch in settings that blur the line between dining and nature observation, where meals become opportunities to experience the ocean's bounty while watching the sun set over waters that really seem to hold the sky. The night sky above Balizas and Aguas Dulces reveals one of the most spectacular celestial displays in the Western Hemisphere. With minimal light pollution and clear coastal air, the Milky Way just blazes overhead with an intensity that seems almost impossible to urban dwellers. Stars reflect on the wet sand at low tide, creating a landscape that seems to extend infinitely in all directions, where the boundaries between Earth and sky, dissolve into something approaching cosmic consciousness. The sound of waves creates a constant, soothing soundtrack that seems to synchronize with the rhythm of the visible universe, turning simple beach visits into encounters with the infinite. The conservation efforts surrounding both villages represent a model for sustainable coastal development that other destinations study and honestly try to replicate. Strict regulations ensure that development remains limited and sensitive to the ecosystem's needs, while educational programs help visitors understand the complex environmental relationships that make these places so special. The result is a destination that feels both accessible and precious, where human presence actually enhances rather than diminishes the natural wonder, creating experiences that transform visitors into advocates for the protection of similar coastal ecosystems worldwide. The Rocha wetlands sprawl across eastern Uruguay like nature's own masterpiece of biological engineering, where freshwater lagoons, salt marshes and coastal forests create one of South America's most important bird sanctuaries, while simultaneously demonstrating the profound beauty that emerges when water, land and sky achieve perfect balance. This isn't just a wetland, it's a living laboratory where evolution continues to unfold in real time, where hundreds of species of birds, fish and marine life have found refuge in an ecosystem so complex and productive, it seems to concentrate the very essence of life itself. The lagoons of Rocha stretch like liquid mirrors across the landscape, their waters reflecting sky and clouds with such clarity that the boundaries between earth and heaven seem to dissolve. These aren't stagnant pools, they're dynamic environments connected to the Atlantic Ocean through a complex system of channels and barriers that create varying levels of salinity, supporting different communities of life in each body of water. The largest lagoons can accommodate thousands of birds simultaneously, creating spectacles of avian abundance that seem to belong to another geological era, when the planet was younger and wilder. The migratory patterns that converge on Rocha transform the wetlands into a continental crossroads where species from across the Americas pause, rest, and refuel during epic journeys that span the length of 2 continents. Flamingos arrive in flocks so large they turn entire lagoons pink, their synchronized movements creating living artwork that shifts and flows with hypnotic grace. Arctic terns, having completed the longest migration in the animal kingdom, rest alongside tropical species that never venture far from the equator, creating biological diversity that seems to compress the entire Western Hemisphere into a single, accessible location. The plant life of Rocha demonstrates adaptation at its most sophisticated, where species have evolved to thrive in the constantly changing conditions of brackish water, salt spray, and fluctuating water levels. Aquatic grasses create underwater forests that serve as nurseries for fish species, while salt-tolerant plants along the shores create gardens that seem designed by nature's most skilled landscape artist. The seasonal changes are dramatic. What appears as dry grassland in winter transforms into aquatic paradise during the wet season, creating a landscape that literally reinvents itself with each passing year. The scientific importance of Rocha extends far beyond its boundaries, as researchers from around the world come to study ecosystem dynamics, migration patterns, and climate change impacts in one of the few remaining pristine coastal wetlands in South America. The data collected here influences conservation strategies across the continent, while the ecosystem services provided by the wetlands, water filtration, storm protection, carbon storage, demonstrate the economic value of protecting natural environments. The wetlands serve as a living argument for the importance of conservation, where beauty and scientific significance combine to create compelling reasons for protection. The cultural significance of Rocha reflects the deep connection between human communities and wetland environments. Local fishing families have worked these waters for generations, their techniques refined through centuries of observation and adaptation. The traditional boats designed specifically for shallow water navigation, the seasonal fishing patterns that follow natural cycles, the recipes that transform wetland species into regional cuisine, all represent cultural knowledge that has evolved alongside the ecosystem itself. This isn't just preservation of natural habitat, it's preservation of human heritage that depends on healthy wetlands for its continuation. The photographic opportunities in Rocha seem unlimited, where every sunrise reveals new configurations of light, water and wildlife that create images of stunning beauty. The golden hour transforms the wetlands into something magical, where the low light turns every surface into a mirror and every bird into a silhouette against skies that seem to burn with color. Professional photographers travel from around the world to capture images that seem to define the very essence of wetland beauty, while amateur visitors discover that it's almost impossible to take a bad photograph in an environment where natural beauty is so abundant and accessible. Number 1. Quebrada de los Cuervos. Quebrada de los Cuervos slices through the landscape of eastern Uruguay like a secret revealed only to those who understand that the most profound beauty often hides in plain sight, where ancient geological forces have carved a canyon system so dramatic and unexpected it seems to belong to another continent entirely. This isn't just Uruguay's most spectacular natural wonder. It's a revelation that transforms everything you thought you knew about South American geography, where subtropical forests cascade down canyon walls, waterfalls plunge into emerald pools, and the very air seems to vibrate with life force concentrated and amplified by the canyon's protective embrace. The canyon itself defies every expectation of Uruguayan landscape. Carved by the Yerbal Chico stream over millions of years, the gorge plunges nearly 300 feet below the surrounding grasslands, creating a hidden world where the climate, vegetation, and wildlife exist in complete contrast to the pastoral plains above. The descent into the canyon feels like traveling through geological time, where each level reveals different rock formations, different plant communities, different microclimates that demonstrate the incredible diversity that can exist within a single natural feature. The walls rise on either side like the buttresses of a natural cathedral, their surfaces covered with ferns, mosses, and flowering plants that seem to glow with an inner light in the filtered sunlight. The forest ecosystem of Quebrada de los Cuervos represents one of South America's most northerly examples of Atlantic coastal forest, a remnant of the vast woodland that once covered much of the eastern part of the continent. Ancient trees rise from the canyon floor, their canopies creating a living roof that filters light into constantly changing patterns of green and gold. The diversity is staggering. Over 1,000 species of plants exist within the canyon system, including trees that are found nowhere else in Uruguay and medicinal plants that have been used by indigenous peoples for thousands of years. The forest floor, carpeted with fallen leaves and crossed by crystal-clear streams, creates walking paths that seem designed by nature's most skilled landscape architect. The bird life of the canyon transforms every visit into an ornithological adventure where rare species exist alongside common ones in a community that reflects the unique conditions created by the canyon's microclimate. The canyon's namesake, the southern caracara called Cuervo locally, soars overhead with prehistoric grace while smaller songbirds create a symphony of calls that echoes off the canyon walls with acoustic complexity that seems almost orchestrated. The dawn chorus in Quebrada de los Cuervos is legendary among birders, a natural performance that builds in intensity as the sun rises and different species add their voices to the collective celebration of another day. The waterfalls within the canyon create focal points of beauty that seem almost too perfect to be real. The main waterfall plunges nearly 100 feet into a pool so clear it functions as a natural mirror, reflecting the surrounding forest and sky with such clarity that visitors often lose their sense of up and down. The constant spray creates a humid microclimate that supports plant life more typically found in tropical rainforests, while the sound of falling water creates a natural white noise that seems to reset the human nervous system, inducing a state of calm awareness that, honestly, borders on the meditative. The hiking trails within the canyon have been designed to provide access to this natural wonder while minimizing impact on the fragile ecosystem. The main trail follows the stream bed, crossing the water multiple times on carefully placed stones that create opportunities for close observation of aquatic life, while maintaining the sense of wilderness adventure. Side trails lead to viewpoints that reveal different aspects of the canyon's geological drama, while the most challenging routes provide access to the upper waterfalls and the deepest forest sections where, honestly, the sense of being in pristine wilderness becomes almost overwhelming. The conservation success of Quebrada de los Cuervos represents a model for protecting natural wonders that other countries study and attempt to replicate. The canyon's designation as a protected landscape ensures that the ecosystem remains intact while providing opportunities for scientific research and education that increase understanding of subtropical forest dynamics. The visitor center and interpretive programs help people understand the complex environmental relationships that create and maintain this natural wonder, while strict regulations ensure that the canyon remains pristine for future generations. The seasonal changes in Quebrada de los Cuervos create a destination that reveals new aspects of beauty throughout the year. Spring brings flowering trees that transform the canyon into a natural garden, while summer's full canopy creates a green cathedral where shafts of sunlight create constantly changing patterns of light and shadow. Autumn colors reflect in the stream and pools, creating mirror images that seem to double the forest's beauty, while winter's bare branches reveal the canyon's geological structure and allow deeper penetration of light that illuminates details hidden during the growing season. Standing at the rim of Quebrada de los Cuervos as the sun sets and the canyon fills with mist that rises like breath from the hidden forest below, visitors experience a moment of recognition that transcends tourism or even appreciation of natural beauty. This is an encounter with the profound creativity of natural forces, a reminder that the earth continues to create wonders that humble human imagination and inspire the kind of awe that transforms perspective permanently. The canyon doesn't just exist, it breathes, it lives, it demonstrates that even in our mapped and measured world, mysteries remain that can only be experienced, never fully explained. Uruguay reveals itself through these 12 wonders not as a small country overshadowed by larger neighbors, but as a concentrated essence of South American beauty, where every landscape tells a story, every ecosystem demonstrates resilience, and every vista offers proof that true magnificence has nothing to do with size and everything to do with the perfect harmony between human vision and natural forces. From the sophisticated beaches of Punta del Este to the hidden canyon of Quebrada de los Cuervos, from the colonial perfection of Colonia del Sacramento to the wild remoteness of Cabo Polonio, this nation has created a collection of wonders that seem designed to remind us that the most profound beauty often emerges from the most unexpected places. These aren't just destinations, they're invitations to experience the world with heightened awareness, to understand that travel at its best isn't about consumption, but about connection, about discovering that the boundaries between observer and observed, between human and natural, between familiar and extraordinary, are far more permeable than we imagine. Uruguay's wonders work their magic not through overwhelming scale or exotic otherness, but through the quiet insistence that beauty, properly understood, is everywhere around us, waiting to be discovered by those who approach the world with eyes wide open and hearts ready to be amazed. The thermal springs of Daymen remind us that the earth itself offers healing, while the architectural marvel of Casa Pueblo demonstrates that human creativity can enhance rather than diminish natural beauty. The wetlands of Rocha prove that conservation and access can coexist, while the fortress of Santa Teresa shows how time transforms symbols of conflict into monuments of peace. Each wonder contributes to a larger story about the possibility of living in harmony with natural forces, about creating communities that enhance rather than exploit their environments, about understanding that the most sustainable approach to development is one that works with, rather than against, the natural world. If this journey amazed you, subscribe and share it with someone who loves discovery. Some places you visit, others stay with you forever. Until the next destination, stay curious.